Hi there, greetings and salutations. My name is Jake Query. That is Derek Schultz. I believe this is 233, is that right?
233, yeah.
Episode number 233 of the Query and Schultz program here on the ISC Sports Network, brought to you by Bailey & Wood, the best in mortgage lending. And of course, proudly representing, the American Dairy Association of Indiana, Chili Water Brewing, Hoagies and Hops, Chateau Kitchens, amongst others that we have had over the course of 233 shows, right?
Yeah, we've had a great group of sponsors. Some have come and some have gone. We love them all.
We do, indeed.
Yes.
Coming and going. Gone is game number 1 between the Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Very shortly upcoming is game number 2. And I believe, personally, Derek, maybe there will be information just before the game begins at the time that this airs. I think Damian Lillard will be playing in game 2. That's my expectation. But we can get to that later. But bottom line, this is a 7-game series. No series begins until a road team has won a game. But Indiana, good start so far through 1 game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be careful here because we're running this show. If you're watching this on the live stream, normally we run these on 7:30 on Tuesday. We're running this at 6 p.m. because we wanted to get ahead of game 2. So I don't want to spend too much time on game 1 or date it too much and say, hey, like Damian Lillard, will he play? Will he not play? I mean, you guys might know by the time, right?
Right.
By the time that they start the show. But I think really what the Pacers did in the first half of that game told you all you needed to know about
By
them.
the way, he's going to play.
Being ready.
Just so you know.
Being ready to go. That was a dominant first half that they played against Milwaukee, and they were able to just kind of cruise to the finish. I know the Bucks got it to 12 at one point, but you never really felt like that game was in serious threat. And I think the playoff experience of last year helped. The Pacers, remember game 1 last year in Milwaukee? I understand, you're playing on your home court compared to playing on the road. They look shell-shocked. Like, they look like...
But isn't that the reminder that not to get comfortable
Of course, and we'll get to that. But, it just shows that I think that experience, that's where it plays a factor. The Pacers very much were feeling themselves out and feeling the situation out last year, and there wasn't a sense of urgency. And this year there was a sense of urgency. And I think you're going to see that sense of urgency tonight because they know to win this series, they got to go up 2-0. You don't want to go back to Milwaukee 1-1. I know that sounds cliche, but honestly, that's how thin the margin is. We talked about it last week. To me, this is a 52-48 series. And the reason why I lean towards the Pacers is because they've got the extra game at home.
It is amazing, by the way, in the NBA, and maybe this is true every year and I just haven't paid attention, but the parity in the league. I mean, you look at Minnesota and L.A., for example. Yeah. That's a 6-3 series. There's a game between them, right?
Yeah, Knicks and Pistons.
Yeah.
6-3 series, and there's a game between them. And the Pistons could have easily won game 1. They had that stretch where they gave up a 21-0 run, or else they're up 2-0 going back to Detroit.
They probably should have won game 1, right?
Yeah, I think they probably should have as well. But I just think, with where the Pacers are, you can't overreact to one game. I would say that I am comfortable and confident. I am comfortable and confident that they're going to find a way because they have the extra game. And I think especially if they go up 2-0 tonight, I think Milwaukee at that point has to win 4 straight, and I don't think they're going to win 4 straight.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not that the series is over, but I don't think that Milwaukee is going to win 4 straight.
I have a plea to make to the NBA, and I think you'll agree with me here. The association known as the NBA. A lot of people are going to disagree with me here. I think Derek will agree with me. The playoffs are a special time. If you're in an NBA city, part of the NBA and the lure of it, especially after Christmas, I think a lot of people, the NBA season begins in their mindset at Christmas time. But it is a wonderful wintertime sport to go and watch games and take them in on a rainy or snowy February Wednesday evening. It gives you something to do. Watch games, go to a game, whatever it might be. But there's a magic to the playoffs. There's a nostalgia that comes with it if you're from Indianapolis because of the Pacers and some of the great yesteryear teams. But it's this awakening of spring and the weather's broken and it's great. And so therefore you want to be able to go and watch the games, but you also now all of a sudden for the first time have great weather outside. So you would think that the smart thing to do would be to play the games in the evening so you can spend the daytime enjoying the warm weather. But oh no. I don't know why it is, Derek, but I absolutely love, and here is my plea to the NBA. Can we always have the first or second game of each series for Indiana when it's at home be at 1 o'clock on a Saturday? I loved it.
I
loved
afternoon
being
playoff
done at like
basketball.
3:30. You go to the game, they win, then you go to downtown. We went to dinner at like 5 o'clock. Everybody's in a great mood because there's other games on, and you're like kicked back, like, hey, our work's done for the day. Got to win. Let's enjoy it. Have a cold beer, sit outside, have dinner. It's great. I loved the fact it was a 1 o'clock game.
Yeah, I mean, I would love the fact that I got to sit courtside every Pacers game too. That's awesome.
I just mean that it was
Did you like the free drinks and food and at halftime? Did you like that too? Did you enjoy that experience of it?
I sat in the seat during halftime.
No.
But honestly, a 1 o'clock start.
Yeah, no,
it was great.
Afternoon playoff basketball makes me very nostalgic, and the fact there were 4 games.
It feels like a big deal,
four
right?
Games. And you know, like it just feels like the NBA playoffs especially have really staggered the schedule. And so, like, you know, last night you had 2 games, right? And it's just like, no, like, give me the full freight, man. Like, give me all of it at once.
Right.
Overload me with NBA playoff basketball. And that's what you had there on Saturday. And I love the Pacers were the first one. You didn't have to sit around and wait.
That's what I mean. Like,
you didn't have to sit around.
Then you're done, and you've already opened your gifts.
Yeah.
And now sit around.
I loved
and watch
when
the rest of the day.
Purdue was the 12:45 start on Thursday for the NCAA tournament. That's great. Wonderful. Yeah. Let's go. Like, let's get right to it. I don't want to be the 9:45 start in Sacramento.
It's kind of like, do you remember in college during finals week, you always had that one buddy, you know, every once in a while it would be you, where like you had 2 finals that were like on Thursday and Friday. Yeah. Everybody else was done on Monday.
The worst. The absolute worst. I had one that was I had a 10 a.m. once on a Friday. Yeah.
Like, you know, like, let's just get it over with here, right?
Like, everybody was going, like, I got locked out of my dorm because they were like, wait, you're still here? And I had to get that was back when we used the physical keys before you had, like, fobs and things like that.
Who was your roommate your freshman year?
Dan. My man Dan from St. Louis. He went to Chaminade.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he only lasted a semester, right?
No, he lasted a year, and then he transferred to SLU to be with his high school girlfriend, and then he found out she was cheating on him that entire freshman year, and then they broke up. It's actually, I shouldn't smile. It's actually not.
But
you got funny.
He was a potluck roommate, right?
Yeah, potluck roommate, totally random.
And you got along with him,
yeah,
though, right?
Yeah, that's potluck is not the only pot that was involved with that, but yeah, with Dan.
Yeah, you got to.
Dan was an enthusiast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That and Counter-Strike. If you're an old gamer, if you ever played Counter-Strike on PC before, man,
did he take school seriously? Did he go to school?
He was a really smart dude. Really smart dude. He had a great family, and he liked to play video games and to smoke as well. But he got all of his stuff done. I think he had great grades. He had better grades than I did freshman year. Okay. But he loved his girlfriend. I always thought she was real nice. She'd come and visit and all of that, and then apparently like this double life going on.
Really?
I mean, that hits you a little bit as a guy, though, right? To like,
of course,
yeah, your pride and stuff like that. Like, I felt bad for him, but he's a great guy. He sent me he had a camcorder from freshman year, and he sent me some of the old videotapes, which I promptly burned right after that. But yeah, we semi have kept in touch. He's in Taiwan right now. Yeah.
Followed a girl over there and then found out that he's
married now. He is married now. Yeah, okay. And still an enthusiast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, now that it's largely been decriminalized, but yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, good for Dan.
Okay, so game 2, Derek, Pacers-Bucks, and just the overall series. Bottom line is this, and I still am very cautious of this series because Giannis is a player that can put a team on his back and say, let's go. Here's what we're going to do. But I think what we saw in game number 1 is simply this, and I don't mean this to sound overconfident or whatever else. The Pacers 2 through 8 have the better roster, right?
Yeah.
Giannis is the best player on the floor. There's no doubt about it. But he went for 36. He got to the free throw line whenever he wanted. He only had a single assist, which is rare because at point forward, he's been doing 8, 10, 12 assist games, right? And he only had 1 assist. I think they just said, you can go with that, and we'll rotate people through on Giannis, but we're going to try to shut everything else down, and for the most part, they did. Now, can they maintain that is the question.
Yeah, because the Bucks miss shots that they normally make. This is a very good three-point shooting team, and I saw something that this was one of their worst three-point shooting games all season. 83 games. This was one of their worst games. So you would think that, shooting variance plays into this. But I think what's so interesting about the Bucks, Jake, is that their starting lineup is not their best lineup. Their best lineup is Giannis and the bench guys. That's who they close games with.
Right.
So, it's Giannis and AJ Green and Bobby Portis and that group, Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent. That group is their best one, not Rollins and Prince and
Lopez.
Like that's not their best group. Now maybe that changes with. We're assuming even if Lillard doesn't come back, Lillard is going to play in this series, right? We can say that confidently.
I think he's going to play.
Even if he doesn't play tonight.
Play game 2, yeah.
And that might change as far as that concerned. But that's why the whole talk about, well, Lillard's not playing in this series, and that's actually a good thing for the Bucks. Lillard is still one of those guys that can almost single-handedly win you a game. And I think you need that out there for the Bucks because I don't think that their lineup is certainly their starting lineup is way worse than what the Pacers put on the floor.
By the way, I've noticed this about Brook Lopez. I have an observation about Brook Lopez. Not only does he look like Sykes, the one-armed man from The Fugitive, I mentioned that
he
before.
Does, yeah.
The way he moves, very good player, right? Very effective player, very good player. The way he moves, he looks like an athletic toddler who needs a diaper change. Have you noticed that?
I have not noticed that.
Once you notice it now, you'll never unnotice it.
Okay.
He moves he's not a fluid mover.
No.
He moves like a full diaper.
He's slow. He's definitely slow. I wonder, though, if there's something more that the Bucks can tap into there and using him more as a post player than a perimeter player.
Correct.
The problem is that you're just giving up so much because he's so slow.
Well, and you can't have him clog the lane for Giannis.
Well, yeah, and like hypothetically, if Brook Lopez is posting up Siakam or somebody, whoever's guarding him, and misses a shot, then suddenly the Pacers are going the other way, and you're playing 5-on-4. Yeah. You're almost like conceding a basket.
He is a good shooter. I mean, he's a very good
He's a great shooter.
Player,
he's a great offensive player, just period. But I just wonder if there's something a little bit, maybe with Lillard coming back, that's not going to matter as much. But he had a very quiet game 1.
Kyle Kuzma had a quiet game 1.
Yeah, he had a trill, right?
22 minutes played.
Yeah, he had a trill.
Let me tell you, what is it?
You never remember Mark Titus, the old Brownsburg guy?
Yeah.
He had Club Trillion, and his joke was for Ohio State, he'd come in and put up a trillion. 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, whatever the numbers is to get to a trillion.
Well, Kyle Kuzma, late in the game, he came back on the floor, and I swear you could see it. He knew what was going on, and he's like, I just need an assist or a rebound.
Yeah.
And Doc Rivers had said with Kyle Kuzma, look, the fact he was 0 for 5 from the floor, 0 for 2 from the free throw line, and Doc Rivers had said, Kyle Kuzma in his defense, we got to get him the ball to get him shots before we can critique him for not scoring. He was in the wing and basically forgotten about on every offensive possession. He also had apparently a finger injury. But late in the game, you could tell he knew he needed one stat to get this whole zeros across the board out of the way. And it didn't happen, and I think he was well aware of it as it was happening. I almost felt bad because he's not a bad player.
No.
But he is the poster child. You know my favorite phrase, Derek.
Yeah, 25 guy.
You got to admit it.
It's pretty good, yeah.
A 20-25 guy, destined to score 20 a game on a 25-win team his entire career. Kyle Kuzma, the poster child for it. Now he's on a good team. That trade that Milwaukee made so far has not worked out for them. Trading Chris Middleton, who I know is on 2 bad legs, but is just a solid core glue player and a popular player in Milwaukee for Kyle Kuzma, not working out.
You had to take a shot though, because they were old and slow last year, and it was it was time to, even if you swing and miss, you still got to swing. But if I'm the Bucks, I'm flushing game 1. I'm not even worried about it. I'm thinking to myself, hey, look, we usually make shots. I think they got to defend a lot better than they did, especially in the first half. I mean, they were conceding way too many easy baskets, I think, to the Pacers, but I'm expecting the Bucks to shoot better. I think they'll probably implement some zone, right, to try to slow the Pacers down a little bit. But they're just going to have to lean heavy into the Giannis bench mob minutes, and they're gonna have to win those big because they're not going to. If Lillard's not going to play, they're not going to win the minutes when it's the starters.
I thought the Pacers' tone was set in 2 ways. Number one, and I know you don't want to go too much into game 1, but Miles Turner hitting an early 3 was important to them, and I think they'll try to do that again in game 2 of stretching the floor immediately. But the defensive intensity for Indiana needs to be there for the entire series. And that defensive intensity, I think, begins with an offensive aggression and a confidence level of just upping his game from the guy that I would like to nominate for our Winner's Drink Milk Winner of the Week. which, by the way, is brought to you by the fine folks at the American Dairy Association of Indiana, who have right now Prairie Farms, one of their partners in putting together the commemorative Indianapolis 500-mile race bottle. This one happens to have Will Power on it. You have the guy, Joseph Newgarden, who, when he first drank milk in Victory Lane in the first of his 2 wins, looked at Carrie Estes, the American Dairy Association Indiana farmer, and said, "I've been to your farm," and then took that swig of milk, which is pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
The American Dairy Association of Indiana, by the way, winners drink milk. We know that. It's the greatest celebration in sports, and it is the ultimate post-workout refreshment drink because you get vitamin A, you get calcium, you get protein. It's the equivalent of a cup of spinach. It's the equivalent of 2 hard-boiled eggs. It's the equivalent of a banana, all right there in your refreshment drink. Chocolate milk is the best after a workout, and they bring us each and every week our winner of the week. Derek, I'm going to go personally with Andrew Nembhard because I thought that he offensively and defensively both set the tone for Indiana. We take a look at him right here in a game. Of course, he had a huge shot in Los Angeles when he was a rookie. But a guy that late in games at the free throw line I worry about a little bit. At times offensively, I think he gets a little bit forgotten about. But I loved his aggression on both ends of the floor. I thought it set a great tone for Indiana.
Yeah, dude's just a gamer, man. I know that there are a lot of frustrations with his shot making and things like that, like in December and January and February games. But
chocolate milk is just
when the chips are down, like Nembhard is the guy that I feel like you can always rely on. You could have chosen Miles Turner for that. He was excellent in game 1. You could have chosen Pascal Siakam in that. He was excellent. That was the difference in the game more than anything. I mean, I think the Pacers overall played better than the Bucks, but the Pacers had 3 excellent performances, whereas the Bucks had 1. And if you're going to outweigh them 3-1 like that, then you're going to win the series doing that.
You know, another thing I've noticed, and in particular in that game, it really jumped out. The Pacers, Jarris Walker has replaced Ben Shepherd in the rotation. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
And I like it because nothing against Ben Shepherd. Walker's three-point shot has really come to him, but more so his size defensively allows them versatility defensively to slide guys over, especially on Giannis.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's a great athlete too. Not that Shepherd's not, but he's a great athlete too. And I think you get a little bit a more well-rounded player. Like Jarris Walker can do a couple of things pretty well, whereas Shepherd is, I think, a little bit more limited skill set wise. But it's about unlocking that for Jarris Walker, whereas you already knew what Shepherd brought to the table, and we're still kind of learning what Jarris Walker is as a player. I went completely outside of basketball and kind of did this to be snarky, but it segues into our next segment. Chris Ballard's still here, right? Isn't he the winner of the week? He's going to get a 9th draft coming up here starting on Thursday. And to be fair to Ballard, snark aside, his draft record has been solid. This is kind of Chris Ballard's time to shine. It's sort of like how IU basketball, the highlight of the year for IU basketball is the transfer portal in like April and May, and then the actual game start, and you're like, oh crap, this sucks. That's sort of the same thing with Ballard, where everybody goes crazy about his draft class, and he drafts a bunch of guys with high RAS scores, and they're twitchy and the whole deal, and oh my God, like Ballard's in his bag, and he did it again, guys. And then you get to the season, and you're like, okay, like Kwity Paye, it's fine. Kwity Paye's fine. He's pretty good. Alcapar's fine. He's a good player. He drafts a lot of guys that are fine. I think that's kind of the issue. And the guys that aren't just fine are the ones that are at the positions that don't matter. So, like, Quentin Nelson's an unbelievable player, right? Offensive guard doesn't matter. It doesn't change the game. It doesn't really have much of an effect on winning or losing at all. It's nice to have. Jonathan Taylor, oh my God, it doesn't really impact the game. Whereas an elite edge rusher, elite wide receiver, I think his problem is it's sort of like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. Michael Pittman Jr. was a good draft pick, right? Alec Pierce ultimately is a good player. Kwity Paye is a good player, but they're just good.
Right.
Like they're good. They're not great. Like, will Kwity Paye be back after next year? Probably not, right? Because he's not worth breaking the bank for because he's just not a game breaker. He's kind of just a guy. And Pittman's fought through injuries, and he's a gamer, and I don't know if I want to put Pittman in that category, but we keep kind of waiting for him to break out as well. And it's like, you know, I saw something the other day that's like, well, the Colts had 3 800-yard receivers, and I'm like, so you had a guy that was like 847, 827, and some of that is the quarterback play, right, in defense of those guys. But I'm like, are we throwing a parade over that? Like, you know, 800-yard guys, like that's better than, I guess, what they've been. And I think the wide receiver room is solid, but it's completely unspectacular to me.
Somebody made an interesting point to me regarding the draft that I think's brilliant and what the first-round pick of the Colts could tell us. I think's brilliant and what the first-round pick of the Colts could tell us. You want to know what it is?
No, you could tell me next. Is that what you're teasing? Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Winners drink milk, by the way, for our friends at American Dairy Association of Indiana. Thanks so much for them coming on the show. We're a week away. I just sent in our credentials. Month of May credentials. Yeah. Media credentials. Month of May. For our Purdue team. We have a videographer and a couple other people, and I'm going to be out there as well. We got a lot of people that are out there. Every major team has at least one Purdue grad, every full-time team in IndyCar, except I'm trying to confirm with Foyt. We don't know if we have a Foyt person or not.
Okay.
But we have somebody from every other team. We come back. Jake's Tease. We'll talk more Colts Draft when we return. It's Corey and Schultz just getting started. Episode 233 here on ISC.
Tonight.
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in. It's going to be a long night.
Bailey & Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do. From Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Hey, AC!
Nice snap.
Mortgage is a snap! Duh!
Bailey & Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Our thanks to Bailey & Wood Financial Group. Kind of a cool thing. And I saw this on his social media, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing, and I'm assuming he doesn't because he posted on Instagram. But Mike Wood, the founder, CEO, Grand Poobah of Bailey & Wood Financial Group, huge Cubs guy. And I think the picture was from CubsCon, so the Cubs fan convention, but his son Walker with Ryan Sandberg, who obviously, and any Cubs fan you know, certainly in our age group, Ryan Sandberg is like the holy grail of the Cubs. Took a picture with Walker, and apparently at CubsCon, Ryan Sandberg being the awesome guy that I've always heard from everybody that he's like the nicest guy.
We had him on the show once.
Yeah, we did, which was awesome. Even though I could take or leave with the Cubs, but growing up, everybody liked Ryan Sandberg. He told Mike, hey, send that picture to me and I'll sign it. And, you know, sometimes you're like, yeah, that's just the nice thing to say, right? You send him the picture. They're not going to reply. Sent it back to him, signed.
That's cool.
Sent it back to him, signed. So he posted on Instagram. Kind of cool. So, you know, the hero, your sports hero with your son, a really neat experience. Because as neat as it was for me to meet Patrick Ewing, would have been cool to have James there with me too, even though he doesn't like the Knicks.
Who is when you were a kid, your best friend's sports hero was who?
Dave Winfield. Matt Stolman. His AOL screen name was Winf31.
Really?
He loved Dave Winfield, yeah. He's a much bigger Yankees fan than even me. I'm a pretty big Yankees fan. But
Jason Keller, my
Yankees
buddy,
fan.
when I was a kid, was the biggest Dale Murphy fan.
Yeah, how funny, yeah.
Loved Dale Murphy, man.
That's a very era-specific sports hero to have, right? Whereas, like, you ask Vince, hey, tell me one thing about Dale Murphy. He'd be like, I don't know.
The other thing Dale Murphy that went against him to an extent is Dale Murphy in the early to mid 80s was not only an MVP player for the Braves, he was essentially the only great Atlanta. I mean, I know Hank Aaron obviously and Christian, you know, they had guys that played their twilight there, but the Braves didn't have a lot of history. And then since then, the Braves have become, obviously, they've had, Chipper Jones and Andrew Jones, they've had great players that have come through there.
My hottest take, too, is that I think guys that at least their peaks were best player in baseball or in that conversation should be weighed more heavily than guys that just compiled stats from playing forever.
Right.
We talk about like Omar Vizquel, who I know is not in the Hall of Fame, or Harold Baines, who did get in. Those guys were never one of the 5 best, 10 best, 20 best players in baseball ever. I don't know if Omar Vizquel was one of the 50 best players in baseball at any point in his career. Oh, he's a great glove, whatever. No one cared about Omar Vizquel when he was playing. Dale Murphy, Don Mattingly, guys like that. I understand. I've made peace with the fact that Mattingly's not going to be a Hall of Fame. I think Dale Murphy should be. He won MVP twice, for God's sake. He made like 8 All-Star games. Like, What are we doing?
He was a great player. Led the league in home runs.
And, the counting stats, he falls well short of 3,000 hits, and he didn't have 500 home runs. I don't think he even had 400 home runs, but he got close to that.
He led the league in home runs twice. So
well, yeah, but like, we focus on these counting stats, and then that's what we're worried about instead of, was this guy a great player? And he was a great player.
Do you know the other thing?
Even if his window wasn't maybe as long as some of the other guys.
Here's the other thing about Dale Murphy, and I'm probably going to sound generationally biased here, but Dale Murphy was a nationwide favorite player for kids in the last era where kids had favorite baseball players.
Well, I was a 90s kid, and I felt like my friends had favorite baseball players.
Yeah, I'm kind of putting us in the same.
To me, Jake, tell me if you agree with this.
I think of an era meaning a 20-year period. You know what I mean?
But the last true baseball star to me, like that transcended baseball, was Ken Griffey Jr., right?
I would say.
Would you agree with that?
I would say Jeter.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to argue against that. Even though I think Junior's relevance was, Ken Griffey Jr. was a bigger superstar to me than Derek Jeter was, and I understand Derek Jeter played in New York.
But I think, yeah, maybe. I
mean, he had video games and Ken Griffey Jr.
right.
baseball.
But I think, this is going to sound weird. I think Ken Griffey Jr. was a bigger transcendent star or superstar for baseball followers, and I think Derek Jeter was more known for people outside of baseball
probably
fans.
Fair. But
didn't Derek Jeter probably host SNL? I know part of it's he was in New York.
But by the time Jeter's peak happened, baseball was already fading out of relevance.
Yeah.
It was only about the diehard fans anyway. Whereas baseball was still very much not – NFL had passed it at that point. But in the 90s, baseball was still very much like on the national radar.
Well, the strike of 94, which hurt
exactly.
Ken Griffey Jr., you know what I mean?
And the fact that at the peak of his career, he goes to Cincinnati and his body fell apart. And
Dale Murphy.
Sorry, Sean.
265 hitter.
Yeah.
2,111 hits.
Yeah, see, well short there.
398 home runs.
See, like, if he hit 2 more home runs, is he a better player? I mean, come on. Like, what are we talking about here?
But here's the thing. 7-time All-Star, 2-time MVP, 5-time Gold Glove, 4-time Silver Slugger.
Yeah, he was a great defensive player,
2-time home run leader.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's...
I mean, I think he's in, too. But anyway.
And I don't know what the metrics say about him either. Who
here's
knows?
what's interesting about the Colts draft, a point that someone made to me. And this was such a good point. The Colts are drafting 14th in the first round. Let's say that they stay there. Let's assume that they stick at 14. They don't trade up. They don't trade down. So they make the 14th selection. The position, Derek, that virtually everyone assumes they're going to lock into at position number 14 is what?
Tight end.
Yes. But here's the thing. You have a quarterback in Anthony Richardson that what does Anthony Richardson do well? Tell me the 2 things he does well.
Run.
Okay.
And he can throw the deep ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me the one thing Anthony Richardson can't do at all that is holding him back from being the guy that they are willing to hand the kingdom to.
He struggles on short and medium throw accuracy.
Say that again?
He struggles on short and medium throw accuracy.
A tight end, if you were looking for a tight end, as Chris Ballard said, that plays on all 3 downs, meaning somebody that's going to block for you, but also somebody that is a target for your quarterback. What sort of throws does a tight end receive?
For the most part, short and medium. Yeah. for the most part.
So if they are drafting a tight end at 14 and using a first-round, first half of draft pick on a tight end, doesn't that lead you to believe that they are then prepared to have a quarterback that could actually deliver the ball to said tight end to take advantage of what they just spent a 14th overall pick on? And if that's the case, does that not lead evidence to the fact that they are more open towards Daniel Jones starting than Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, but the flip side of that is you want somebody to be able to bail out your quarterback too and
Understood.
be a security blanket. And I could just as easily argue that Tyler Warren or any of those guys can do, Loveland or any of those guys can do that.
So do you think Warren and Loveland, the Colts, like during private workouts, were like, can we see you do this a lot? How well can you do this? What is your extension this way? How high can you leap?
Yeah.
Right? We're not worried about you catching right here.
No, yeah.
How flexible are you?
Yeah. No, you're not wrong when it comes to that. It just feels like, Jake, that everything is pointing to them taking a tight end, right? Because what they've said, and you look at the roster, and it's such the obvious glaring hole, even though
But Chris Ballard likes their guys. He likes the roster. He likes their guys.
that's what he said in the past. But I think
What he said. Here's the thing.
what he's done in the offseason has shown that he's changed his mentality a bit.
4 years ago, he liked their receivers. Then he upgraded them. Then he liked their pass rush. Then he upgraded it. A year ago, he liked their defensive backs. Then he upgraded it. Now he likes their tight ends.
If they are to go in a different direction than tight end, I would not be surprised. And maybe this doesn't even happen at 14, and maybe this happens with one of their day 2 picks. I'd not be surprised if they took another edge.
Totally agree.
Kwity Paye and Tyquan Lewis and Ebukam are all in their final year of their deals. They just invested in Latu, so he's a long-term guy, right? But you lost Dio in free agency, and you could just never have enough at edge. I mean, they keep drafting edge over and over and over again, hoping that they'll really hit. So if they do go in a different direction, that's where I think that they would go. Interior offensive line is another need. They need a starter at right guard, but that's not something that you look at 14.
Can you imagine 14th if they take like a right guard?
Yeah,
let me look at the
I don't
best
think you
right
do
guard
that.
available.
Linebacker depth, defensive secondary depth as well. But I think they're pretty well set on offense. I think they're going to draft a quarterback. I do think they're going to draft a quarterback.
I'm telling you, Derek. Quinn Ewers.
Later.
Quinn Ewers.
Later, though. Obviously, they're not going to draft a quarterback at 14. But later in the draft, I do think that they're going to end up taking a quarterback. But I think offensively, the depth chart actually is in a pretty good spot. I don't think they need to draft a receiver. And that's the first time in a long time I feel like that I haven't felt that the Colts needed to draft a receiver. So I think that the needs are pretty self-explanatory, but I'm almost nervous going into this draft, Jake, because history says that when every sign points in one direction, the Colts go kind of another way.
Derek.
The only time to me that the Colts made an obvious pick in an obvious spot was, or I guess maybe not the only time, but the most recent one that I can think of is Ryan Kelly. What were they picking, like 18th, 19th, whatever they were that year, remember? And they needed a center, and I thought it was obvious that it was going to be Ryan Kelly when he was there. But outside of that, and people will say quarterback. Yes, of course, quarterback was also an obvious pick with a couple of years ago. But I'm talking like when you're a little bit later on into the round.
Tell me what the Indianapolis Colt fan nation would do if this is the pick. You ready?
Yeah.
Can you do the draft sound for me, please? With the 18th pick, the 2025 NFL Draft, Indianapolis Colts select Gray Zabel, offensive lineman, North Dakota State.
Yeah. And he's from North Dakota State, too, which makes it even more fun. Jake, he's a really he's a great athlete. He really gets off. He's great footwork as well, and he's really twitchy. He had a 8.92 raw score. The one good thing about getting the draft over with, and I have a lot of people that I really respect that cover the draft, and they do unbelievable work, like super in-depth.
But I don't understand this, though. Mock Draft 9.0 is out. Then what was Mock Draft 2.0?
I don't get it. People putting it on Twitter like, here's my mock draft. What do you think for the Colts? Ooh, I really like this one. Why would I even spend any time at all? The chances of even getting two players from that class are like, what,
Okay.
10%?
Let me tell you this.
So why would I invest any time at all thinking about that?
A year ago, I did a radio show in, I don't even remember where it was. I think it was in Virginia somewhere. So they called me and they go, hey, we're doing a mock draft where we're having a radio personality on from every market in the NFL for the first round. So will you represent the Colts? I'm like, sure. Right, great. So the Colts last year drafted where, Derek? I don't even remember. They took Latu, what, like 13?
14.
Okay, same
14.
Okay. So
First defensive player taken, yeah.
So they call me and they go, okay, here's everybody that's been taken. Get ready to have your pick. And I'm like, okay. So they're like, okay, Jake, like, who do you think the Colts are going to take? And I'm like, well, you mean who do I think they're going to take, or who am I taking in this little mock thing?
Yeah.
No. And if you were really Chris Ballard right now, and these are the players that have been taken, I go, okay, Brian Thomas Jr. Isn't that his name, the wide receiver?
Yeah,
from Jackson?
LSU. Yeah.
I go, Brian Thomas Jr. of LSU. These guys mocked it not only on the air, but then sent tweets about how that was the dumbest thing they'd ever heard. What a stupid pick. They couldn't believe how dumb I was. And I'm like, well, first off, all the players that realistically the Colts would have taken were already taken in your little fantasy draft here.
Yeah.
But secondly, in hindsight, isn't Brian Thomas Jr. like one of the 8 best players that was taken in that draft?
He was talked about at that pick too, wasn't he?
Yes.
Like I remember him being speculated that he could be that.
Wasn't he a first-team all-rookie performer?
Yeah.
Like, he was really good.
Well, I mean, the thought was that.
So they called me this year and asked me to do it again. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I mean, the thought last year was that they were going to take Bowers, but there was also the thought that they could trade up to take Malik Neighbors. Right. Remember? So a big-time receiver. But I don't think – I mean, I remember seeing a mock draft where the Colts traded down and took Brian Thomas. But, yeah, I don't think that was the most outlandish thing.
Yeah, like every player that you just mentioned was already gone by the time I was doing this little fake pick.
So what was that phone call? Did they call you or did they text you and ask you back on?
They called me.
And what was that phone call like? Because I know how you are when you feel like you've been wrong.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you going to give me my props for the pick that you mocked last year?
Yeah. What'd they say?
Well, I mean, it just seemed like a stretch. Like, okay, well, nah, man. When do you need me? Such and such time. I'm tied up.
Yeah. That was it. Hang up.
I mean, you know me.
I know the conversation included a lot more profanities than that.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I just know.
You know one thing, Derek, that you've never given me
when you're wronged, you have a wronged side, and it is borderline scary.
One thing that you have never given me my proper credit on, I have within me a skill that I think deep down you envy.
Telling people exactly what you think?
Yes. I think you envy that. I think there are times where you think, I wish I could do that.
I'm a PR guy by trade, so it is very difficult for me to bluntly tell somebody how I feel, or even like tell somebody off. The whole representative at a credit card company or at a airline or something like that. I have a lot of trouble being mean. I went into. I'll do a great example. I went into a store where my mailbox is the other day, and I'm
Your
like,
mailbox is in a store?
no, like I have a PO box.
Okay.
And
For what?
Because I have to for the LLC. You have to register a physical address for the LLC.
You don't
Schultz
use
Media.
your house?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I go in there and I was like, hey, there wasn't a package slip in here, but I have a package. I got a notification that I got a package. Sometimes I ship stuff there. And he's like, well, if you didn't have a slip, then you don't have a package. I'm like, I got the notification right here. Like, it's notifications right here. And he's like, can you show me? Do you have a tracking number? I'm like, yeah, let me get the tracking number. I got the tracking number. And he types it in or whatever. And I go, I think it was shoes. I think it was Nike shoes. So it was like a shoe box. 186 is my box. And he goes in the back and he's like, oh, here they are. I'm like, I don't get like a sorry or something. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't the appropriate thing be like, oh my God, man, I'm real sorry. Yeah, here they are. Sorry for the confusion there. I don't know why there wasn't a slip in there. It was just, all right, here you go. Have a good day.
He told you.
Whereas you would have been like, stomping your feet and throwing stuff around and doing all that stuff. Like, and so I just kind of, all right, yeah, you too. And I just kind of walked out. And then I thought to myself, man, like that would have been.
See, here's the thing. I think a lot of it comes down to this.
Not that that's the biggest deal in the world, but like like if I were me and I was buying the car now, I'd be mortified that I told somebody, no, you don't have a package. What are you talking about? You don't have a slick, you
if
idiot.
you're on the other side of the counter from somebody and you decide to stand up for yourself, they really can't tell if you're standing or not. So it's kind of a wasted effort.
That makes me feel even worse. So Dale Murphy and customer relations. That's what we can talk about on the show as well. Let's get to our Hoagie and Hero of the Week. It's brought to you by our friends at Hoagies and Hops. HoagiesandHops.com, 42nd and Boulevard. Catering available right now. Catering's a big deal with all the barbecues and cookouts and everything else that you've got going.
This time of year, too,
Big
the weather's just perfect to sit outside at 42nd and Boulevard. They got the deck there. You can sit outside, eat, have a sandwich.
Big Sando tray. Get a big Sando tray
Philly.
At Hoagies and Hops. It's amazing. They were closed on Easter Sunday, and they're closed Mondays normally. So Christina's out of town. So sometimes when that happens and there's a conflict on a Sunday, Christina can come in on a Monday and she's in the shop and she'll whip me up something real quick. That wasn't an option for us this time around, which is fine. But any of their sandwiches, we wanted to really do the catering trays. They can make any of their sandwiches in the catering trays. Any of their cold subs, and they're all delicious.
One of the things I love about the Hoagies and Hops chili water combo right there is on this show, Darren King, Greg Poley, Matthew, the way that we have listeners of this show that have what's that?
Nate Marine goes in there all the time,
and they've become friends not only of the show but of one another and whatever else through Hoagies and Hops. It's you know what I mean. People, it's a thing where they enjoy posting or messaging about how excited they are for the weekend to go in and pick up a sandwich and take it home. It's cool.
It's the best. 90% of the time when I go in there, I see somebody I know. Whether it's from the show, whether it's from the neighborhood, whether it's from St. Thomas, somebody like that, and they always point out to me, hey, this is your place. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It is my place. Thank you for saying that. I mean, that's the best thing that we can do for a sponsor of this show, because yes, money changes hands, right? And the whole deal, it's a business partnership. But the absolute best thing that we can do is try to ingrain them into the show.
Right.
And
totally
I feel
agree.
like that's what we've done
I would agree.
with Hoagies and Hops. I mean, we try to do that with everybody.
And chili
right?
water's fabulous.
But we really try to ingrain them into the show the way that the Dairy Association for all those years at the Firestone Garage was ingrained into the show too, and are still ingrained in the show because they're still sponsoring it after all these years. Even though Brooke is eventually, Brooke's really smart. She's going to wake up one day and be like, why don't we have Jake on doing this show? I told Brooke, independently, like I mentioned with my P.O. Box, Schultz Media LLC, I make independent deals all the time. And I've seen your rate and I've seen my rate, and bang for the buck wise, over here. Bang for the buck. See, no bang for the buck there.
I don't think that there's any way that – now, we're very appreciative of our partnership with Brooke and Jenny and the American Dairy Association of Indiana. But there's no way that they're hitching to just Derek without this part of the wagon.
Well, I think the issue – first off, we're a team. Even though obviously I can be a great player. What I've always kind of compared it to is Jordan and Pippen, right? Scottie Pippen's a great player. A really good player. He's not the first person that you think of when you think of the Bulls, but he is in that conversation. He had a nice career as well, but he ain't Jordan. But the two together can be a dynasty, and that's kind of what we've become here on this show. So that's kind of how I would phrase it.
I didn't think you liked Scottie Pippen. I'm surprised you would equate yourself to him.
I hate Scottie Pippen.
By the way,
I met him at St. Elmo the other week.
Really?
The other year, last year.
Was he nice?
He was at that beefsteak event, and suddenly we're in the wine room, and it was the most random moment of my life. It was like, hey, guys, you want to take a picture with Scottie Pippen? So I took a picture with Scottie Pippen, and I said, I was kind of half popped, and I told him.
Okay. I was kind of half popped.
I told him that, I'd never forgiven you for dunking on Patrick Ewing. And he was like, man. That's all he said.
I had a discussion last night, and you tell me if you agree. Kind of a hot take.
You don't think Scottie Pippen was a great player? You've said this before.
I think he's an overrated player.
Yeah. I
think he was a very good player. I don't think that he's in the historical level that people think. But having said that, and this kind of falls in the category of who's your Mount Rushmore?
Yeah.
But I said this last night, and Marcus from Australia was like, wait, what? And I'm like, I'm just telling you. LeBron James has never had a supporting cast roster better than any supporting cast that Michael Jordan won a title with. True or false?
I guess it would depend on how you feel about if you took Kyrie from those middle teens Cavs teams and compared him to Pippen. I mean, personally, I would take Pippen, I think.
Well, but then
more
Derek,
well-rounded player.
But you still get, okay, so you do that. Name another Cav.
Yeah, compared to like Rodman or any of those other guys.
Rodman,
Horace Grant at his peak.
Kukoc,
Yeah.
Ron Harper.
Yeah. B.J. Armstrong was a good player. B.J. Armstrong was an all-star one year. He was a good player.
I mean, they had
yeah.
those. I think people forget on those Bulls teams, especially the second group that he had. And I mean, look, I'm taking nothing away from Michael Jordan, but Scottie Pippen, Ron Harper, Tony Kukoc, Dennis Rodman. I mean, that's an elite supporting cast.
You're right. It's better than probably they had. I think if we're just talking number twos, then LeBron's had several that you would put in the. I mean, Anthony Davis in the Pippen category for sure.
But I'm talking about the overall supporting the overall team.
And those late LeBron years in Cleveland when it was like Jordan Clarkson and like
totally.
You know what I mean? Like Matthew Dellavedova. I mean, like Varejao. Remember early on in the Cavs years, like they didn't have a lot. I don't know. I get tired of the whole. If you can't appreciate how great LeBron is by now, then I just don't have time for you. I don't care whether you think he's better than Jordan. Pound for pound, I think Jordan's better. But if you don't think that that's an argument, then you're crazy.
Right.
And to me, something else that I'll say definitively too, and he's no longer with us. LeBron is a better player than. People talk about like Kobe, like he's the second best player. Kobe, to me, as great as Kobe was, Kobe is closer to the 10th best player in NBA history than he is the best player in NBA history.
No question.
Like, I don't think Kobe's even the greatest Laker. And maybe that's an age bias for me. I think Magic Johnson's the greatest Laker to ever play.
Kareem?
So, Kareem's up there too.
Wilt?
But, with the Bucks, there are a lot of great ones.
Shaq?
Peak Shaq.
Yeah.
And, we do this thing where it's like, well, yeah, Kobe won 5 rings. It's like, look, Kobe was a great player. Those first 3 rings, he had the most dominant player at the peak of his career, one of the most dominant players in NBA history in the peak of his career. You want to talk about teammates.
Shaq was.
And yet we act like those rings are all the same. Well, he's got 5 and LeBron's got 4, whatever else. And we're just counting rings. And I just think that's a really lazy way to argue it.
Shaq was unstoppable.
Yeah. And Kobe's an unbelievable player, too. Like, we're talking about one of easily it's certainly a top 10 player. And I think Kobe even has an argument for the top 5. But people act like, oh, my God, like it's Jordan and then Kobe. What?
Yeah, I would agree.
I've never felt that way. And you look at a lot of the NBA lists,
Derek,
like greatest players of all time, and Kobe's not too.
I mean this in no way, shape, or form to obviously desensitize the tragedy of his passing. But in the month before his passing and the month after his passing, he went from widely accepted as 7 to 12 on the all-time list to like 2.
Well, and I think the other thing that Kobe had that a lot of those other guys didn't have, he was such a big superstar. He was such a transcendent, huge, worldwide, international superstar.
You know what part of it is?
Some of the great players weren't.
Do you know one
level.
thing that's a huge advantage for him? Magic Johnson would notwithstanding.
That his dad was relevant?
His name's Kobe.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah, it's a cool name.
It is, and
it is a really cool name.
Name anybody else you know of named Kobe besides Kobe Ty.
And if we're talking about the greatest competitors in NBA history,
sure.
Oh my God. Like he borderline psychotic.
Did you
like
see,
Jordan? I mean, you have to be a psychopath to
see one of the
play
like that.
There
was a documentary or 30 for 30 or something on Kobe Bryant where they interviewed this like high school janitor in New Jersey who got to know him really well, and they're like, "How do you know Kobe Bryant?" And he's like, "Well, when he played, anytime that they were playing the Nets or the Knicks." After they got done with shoot around and practice, whatever else, he needed a place to come and do his own individual workouts. And so he just contacted this high school, got to know the janitor, said like, hey, so if I call you each time that we're in town, can I come in here? And the janitor would come and unlock the gym and let Kobe work out individually. And they did it for 12 years or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Stuff like that.
And what he did for his daughters and what he did for women's basketball, like Kobe Kobe did a lot of, he went through things. He's human just like anybody else. And, people will talk about Colorado, whatever happened there and the whole deal. And, he went through some stuff and then got through it. And I just think some of the things that happened with Kobe sort of humanized him to people, whereas it's hard to humanize Jordan. You never humanize, right? Jordan's like a cyborg. Does anybody like Jordan as a person?
That's a good point.
Anybody?
That's a good point.
Anybody that's interacted with him. Whereas there are a lot of guys that and a lot of people that liked. Everybody respected Jordan, but there are a lot of people that like Kobe just as a dude.
By the way, did we get to your hero of the week?
No, we didn't. I love this one. This guy is not on Kobe Bryant's level. In fact, he plays a different sport. But I love stories like this. Austin Wynns is a journeyman catcher. He is 34 years old. He plays for the Cincinnati Reds. He had the game of his life on Sunday. 6 hits, drove in 6 runs in Cincinnati's 24-2 win over Jordan Chu's Orioles. Jordan didn't even show his face today. He's so embarrassed about it.
3 touchdowns and a field goal.
Wynns, so 6 RBI, right? I'm not a math whiz. Wynns had 12 total RBI in his previous 155 plate appearances.
Really?
Yeah. Over the last 2 seasons combined, he's a career 238 hitter.
50% of his
50% of the last 2 seasons.
33% of his career RBI?
No, his career RBI is 112.
Gotcha. Okay.
So but still, we're talking like 7-8% of his career RBI came in one game.
Do you know
against
one
Baltimore.
thing? What's funny is this: when you think about journeyman baseball players, guys that spend their entire career, they're a backup catcher, they bounce around. Maybe they're on a roster just because they're the one catcher that can catch the 5th pitcher in the rotation that throws a particular slider. They bat .212. Do you know how hard it is to be that guy?
Oh, my God, yeah. Lenny Harris.
Like you forget,
Luis Sojo.
Ozzie Virgil.
Yeah, I don't know. Luis Sojo might have actually played.
Carlos Hernandez. I mean, guys like that, Derek. I always say this about the NBA. You go to an NBA game and you watch the 14th guy on the bench, right? And you're like, right now in a bar somewhere, there are 2 guys talking about how that's the greatest player that they ever saw in their community.
Yeah, James Johnson. Yeah.
James Johnson is – let's look up James Johnson's high school. I will get – he's got,
almost guarantee you that he's the best player in that high school history. Yeah.
And Eric Gordon is a really good player. I mean, Eric Gordon is a legend. He went to North Central where I went, right? Eric Gordon is still talked about around here as like his games that went on ESPN when he was in high school and the fact that he's, on and on and on, right? I mean, I don't have to tell you about the accolades of Eric Gordon. At the NBA level, it's just a guy, right?
Yeah, he had a good career. He's had a good career.
Right, but for the rest of the country, it's like, oh yeah, Eric Gordon, like a deadline trade guy that you bring in as a complimentary scorer, right?
But still, do you know how hard it is to stick around for 15 years? Or almost
totally, that's what I mean.
For Eric Gordon now. God, almost 20. George Hill, same thing. And George Hill and Eric Gordon both played at a borderline all-star level at their best. Some guys don't even do that.
By the way, you know what James Johnson was? Wow. I guarantee you James Johnson is the best athlete out of his high school.
Is he from Cheyenne, Wyoming
or
something?
That's exactly
where
he's
from. Oh, my God,
from.
are you right?
That's exactly where he's from. That's exactly where he's from. He went to Cheyenne East High School. You had to have heard that at some point.
No, I had no idea.
I don't mean it as a knock on you.
No.
At some point, you heard that in your career, and it was in your subconscious.
Maybe.
There's no way that you would just randomly pull that out.
Cheyenne is the one that you always use. Like you stop 5 people on the street in Cheyenne, Wyoming. That's why I said it.
Notable alumni of Cheyenne East High School. Trey Harrington, 3-time Wyoming Soccer Player of the Year.
Yeah, okay.
Daniel Jung, Academy Award-winning filmmaker.
Okay.
Aaron Keene, a college football coach. Cynthia Loomis, a U.S. Senator. Brad McCaslin, a college football coach. Brandon Ninmo, an outfielder for the New York Mets.
Yeah, Nimmo. Yeah, he's a good – wow, they had two –
sorry.
They had 2
a columnist for MLB.com.
Pro players.
And James Johnson.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Not bad.
Well, you had an MLBer and an NBAer. That's pretty good. I mean, Cheyenne's the biggest city in Wyoming. What is there, 75 people there?
They have an enrollment of 1,500 students.
Yeah. It's half the size of my high school.
Do you want to guess their massive? The Wyoming East, they are blue and black. That's their colors.
Okay, that doesn't help me.
Do you want to guess their motto?
Wildcats.
Their motto is Cheyenne East together. I'm going to go with Rams.
Okay.
Rams sounds right.
Yeah,
in
Wildcats.
Wyoming, right?
Just process a numbers game. Playing the percentage odds.
Thunderbirds.
Okay, fine. Thunderbirds is fine.
Okay.
Hoagiesandhops.com, 42nd and Boulevard, catering online. Get yourself a big Sando tray. And our friends at Chili Water Brewing, delicious beer. Sorry, I also don't have the beers as well, but so many great ones, and we'll have a Sando to try next week and a beer to chug as well. We come back on the show, some quick hits, and we will keep things rolling here. Episode 233, Corey and Schultz, here on the ISC Sports Network.
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do. From Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Welcome back, Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network, alongside Jake. I'm Derek. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's get right into the quick hits. Jake, you had mentioned to me that you feel like the transfer portal stuff is just getting ridiculous. One example of the new normal here.
I don't have a problem with it fundamentally. It's after a while you can't even keep track.
Ryan Brown transferred from Purdue, spent the spring with North Carolina. He is now transferring back to Purdue. Their quarterback. Sophomore, he played 5 games last season, made 2 starts, including that wild loss, the overtime loss in Illinois,
right,
50-49, and is going to have every opportunity to win a wide-open starting job for Barry Odom's Boilers. The other guys on that depth chart are Arkansas transfer Malachi Singleton, Washington State transfer Evan Chuba, and holdover Bennett Meredith. Who's the kid? Colson. E.J. Colson was also a quarterback. I think he was a UCF guy who's transferring.
How about North Carolina and UCLA? Is that
Tennessee and UCLA?
Tennessee and UCLA.
With Nico and their 2 quarterbacks going back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little weird. By the way, I said
right?
I said last week that
but his brother's also going to UCLA.
Yes,
right? Okay.
I said last week that he got signed by North Carolina. That was one of those fake accounts like the Adorn Schefter that had that. Okay. So I saw that and I was like, oh, I guess he's going to North Carolina. I
but
said
Derek,
on the show
that's what I mean. In your defense,
who knows?
Yeah.
Well, what's weird is that you have a whole spring football practice and then 30 guys leave, and then 30 new guys come in for every team, right? Like not just Purdue or Indiana or anybody else. Like for every team, it's just what are we even doing? Like what? If you went to your spring game, if you went to IU's spring game, you're seeing like a different team in September.
I have a quick hit question for you.
Okay.
Umar Ballo, the center from Indiana.
Yeah.
Did he have remaining eligibility?
No.
He sent a tweet.
I know he saw that he's going to the NBA or whatever.
He sent a tweet that he's declaring for the NBA draft.
Yeah, my understanding was no, but there's some hazy area with eligibility right now because they don't know if the NCAA can even enforce it. There are guys there are like lawsuits going on about eligibility. So you might see 30-year-olds playing college sports at some point here. You're already kind of seeing 30-year-olds play college sports, aren't you? Like remember Chris Wanke like all those years ago? You're like, oh my God, he's 28. And I was like,
Brandon Whedon.
Yeah, Houston's whole starting lineup is 28.
You remember when the Cleveland Browns selected Brandon Whedon because they panicked?
God. What a joke. You know, he came here and won a playoff game that helped Houston win the division. One of those late Pagano teams. Bad. The Noblesville Boom have launched. The Mad Ants have rebranded thanks to their move to Noblesville. The Pacers' new G League affiliate is called the Noblesville Boom, obviously in honor of the Costco dad and his kid.
That's right. Come on, man.
That'll be Slick Leonard and Boom Baby, right?
By the way, I still think Sean from Lafayette came up with the best idea that it should have been the Slicks.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Because,
the racing.
Correct.
Yeah, tie in too. Going to play in Noblesville, the arena at Innovation Mile. It's a 3,500-seat thing. I've been to Fisher's Event Center. It's beautiful. I'm sure the Noblesville one will be nice. I do hope. One thing that I really love about Indianapolis compared to other sports cities is that a lot of this stuff is centered around downtown.
Right.
I don't want to become one of those places where all
Like
the sports
Atlanta.
are happening in
Yeah.
the suburbs. I don't want that.
Yeah.
And, maybe that's because I live inside
Fisher's
465.
Event Center's pretty neat.
But I don't want that. I don't want, But you still, normally you have to take me by gunpoint to get me to go to Fisher's.
Right.
Not that it's not a fantastic community. It's just hell on earth because of the traffic and all of that stuff.
No argument.
And I love the arena. And I understand why people like to be there. It's just, it's not for me.
You strike me as an IKEA guy.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done the IKEA up there. The problem with that is that they put everything there. So it's it's great that we have all of these things, but I don't need Topgolf on top of an IKEA's, on top of a Portillo's, on top of a new St. Elmo restaurant, on top of you know what I mean?
Right.
It's all stacked on top of one another.
What's that sound again?
It would have been great if they threw the IKEA in Lebanon. Just put it out. Put it out a little bit so it's kind of off on its own.
What if they decide that they're going to add to it a Jungle Gyms?
Different conversation there, yeah, because I would definitely go for that. We just went to Jungle Gyms not that long ago. And then my power went out because of that storm, so I had to throw out everything that I bought at Jungle Gyms.
That's too bad.
It sucks. Yeah, I had prosciutto, I had gabago, I had all this stuff that I bought at Jungle Gyms, and I had to toss all of it. I ate most of the gabago. Pistons win their first playoff game since 2008. 15-game streak. That was the longest in NBA history.
That gabago, is that a cheese?
No, it's like capicolo is how it's spelled, but how you say it is gabago.
But what is it?
It's an Italian dry cured meat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It upsets my stomach. Afterwards, I gabago.
There are a lot of nitrates and bad stuff, fillers and stuff like that. It's just I have no off switch with Italian meats. Prosciutto, soppressata, salami, any of that stuff. Just meats, cheeses. All I want all the time.
Okay.
You know what's crazy about that Pistons win? It's the first win since 2008. That streak started after the Pistons went to the conference finals 6 straight years. Pistons, remember all those Rip Hamilton teams?
Yeah.
Pistons went to the conference finals 6 straight years and then immediately in the tank.
But you know what? Those teams, it's interesting too because those teams, the one that won a title.
Yeah.
It's like the most nondescript
No one cares.
NBA. Yeah.
Yeah, no one cares.
Rip Hamilton
cares.
and Chauncey Billups. Okay.
Just like that Pistons. The Bad Boys Pistons were an unbelievable team. The Bad Boy Pistons should have three-peated.
Yeah.
They should have won 3 straight. They should have won in 89. Oh, wait, no, sorry.
They won
88, 89, 90.
Yeah.
They should have won in 88. They probably could have won in 87 too, even though that Lakers team was really good.
You know what I can't remember?
And people just don't really care. I mean, they're kind of like the afterthought of that era.
Who won in 90 and 91?
Well, the Pistons won in 90, and the Bulls' first one was 91.
So the Bulls won 91, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Pistons beat the Blazers in 90. And then in 91, Bulls beat the Lakers. Bulls, Blazers 92,
right.
Bulls, Suns 93.
Bulls, Blazers 92 is this one, right?
Yeah, Jordan Shrug game.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. Those are some great Blazers teams, man.
They were.
Yeah, really, really
Jerome
good teams.
Kersey, baby.
Yeah, that people don't. But again, at least the Pistons have the titles. Nobody remembers the Portland teams because they didn't win. They didn't win the big one. We come back on the show, Chateau Kitchen's Bite or Bull Bleep, and we will wrap up episode 233 here on the ISC Sports Network.
Hey, AC, which games are we going to tonight?
You know we cover all sports in Central Indiana. Hop in, it's going to be a long night.
Bailey and Wood Mortgage Lender, proud partner of News 8 Sports Hummer.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do. From Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Hey, AC,
Nice snap.
mortgages in a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Welcome back. Final time. Corey and Schultz presented by Bailey and Wood Financial Group. Vince is all mad at me because I said we're just going to do an hour. And, of course, we're going to be like an hour 10 here. Let's get right to Bite or Bull Bleep. Brought to you by our friends at Chateau Kitchens, chateaukitchens.com, at Chateau Kitchens on Instagram and Facebook for before and after
do a better
pictures.
job paying attention to the clock.
I know. I do need to do a better job. Statement number 1, Jake. The Colts will draft a quarterback with one of their selections.
100% buy it. It's going to be Quinn Ewers.
I don't know if it would be yours, but yeah, I buy it. I mean, I said that I thought they would draft a quarterback. They need a QB3, right?
They do.
They don't technically have one on the roster right now. And, Sam Ehlinger was a draft pick, right? Curtis Painter was a draft pick. They've had some other guys that weren't draft picks that were deep reserves, but or UDFAs. But they usually, their third guy is a draft pick or a UDFA. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Statement number 2, maybe we're reacting to game 1 here, but I'm not so sure. No one is touching Oklahoma City in the NBA playoffs. Buy or bull bleep?
I will say it's Bullschultz. I think they're very, very good, but they're still young. I mean, you can't see. I'm not that definitive about it. Although, what's interesting, who's the 2 in the West? Houston. Is it Houston?
Yeah. I mean, they're not great.
The West is pretty lean.
The West is not great.
But Cleveland and Boston could give them a run, I think.
I think Oklahoma City is going to cruise to the finals. But the problem with the NBA and why it's bull bleep, the NBA is one of those leagues where you don't get crowned until you knock off who's sitting on the throne. Right. It's just always that way. You always, every team, every transition is, and I know there's a lot more parity right now in the NBA than there was, right? Where you're getting like a new champ every year. We haven't had a dynasty in a while since you go back to the Warriors years. So if it's Oklahoma City, Boston, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that it's Oklahoma City. But they're the odds-on favorite, and they're like historically good. They are really, really good.
They're good.
They just blow everybody out.
Well, I mean, they had
their roster's crazy.
At one point, they had 37 first-round picks. Right?
Yeah, and all 37 of them have hit.
Yeah,
that's
right.
the thing, and they've made some great trades. I mean, it's a great franchise, and it's been a really well-run franchise for the last 20 years.
I'd agree.
They've done a good job. I didn't have a third one. Do you have a third one? Buy or bull bleep?
Yeah, I can come up with one.
Okay, well, you got about 20 seconds.
Buy or Bullschultz from Chateau Kitchens. I took too long to come up with one, and thus we're out of time.
Okay, yeah, I buy it. Thanks to our great sponsors today, like Chateau Kitchens. They're just thrilled to sponsor 2/3 of Buy It or Bull Bleep because we couldn't come up with a third thing. In-home transformations at ChateauKitchens.com, at Chateau Kitchens on Instagram and Facebook. Hoagies and Hops.
The New York Mets are the best team in baseball. Buy It or Bullschultz.
We love them.
New York Mets, best team in baseball. Buy It or Bullschultz.
Bull Bleep. I'll never admit to that. Winners Drink Milk and the American Dairy Association of Indiana, and, of course, Bailey & Wood Financial Group. For Vince, thanks to Sean for pinch hitting today, even all the nasty things that I said about IU. For Jake, I'm Derek. We'll see you next time. Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Bye.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do. From Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
At